This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace.
How often do you eat your Wheaties, breakfast of champions? How hard has your 401k been hit? Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant, and it strikes me today that there is little point talking much about the image quality, build quality, or functionality of Sony's just announced 1.3 kilo, somewhere between $3,500 and $3,900 price, hadn't been finalized as of recording, 50 to 150 millimeter f2 G Master zoom. That's because, let's start here, in some of the test shots we took, it appears to me that the 50 to 150 delivers image quality beyond what our 61 megapixel sensor equipped a7RV and a7CR can capture. This is one optically spectacular lens. From superb resolution across the frame wide open until stopped down to the point of diffraction, chromatic aberration essentially absent at all but the closest distances wide open, sunstars, beautiful, bokeh, wonderfully creamy. Moving on to fast, silent, and sure autofocus, industry leading as always, focus breathing compensation when very little compensation is needed, the usual raft of physical controls, you name it, but seriously, what's left? Well, a few things actually, hold that thought. In the real world, this lens is beyond reproach for its intended audience. Which is who, exactly? I'd say the lens is clearly aimed first and foremost at event photographers, most especially, one might suppose, wedding photographers, especially those eschewing flash. The unheard of f2 constant maximum aperture available all the way out to the 150 top end makes it ideal for flattering, dreamy bride and groom portraits naturally lit. At the wide end, 50mm simply is not wide, but it can still be useful for environmental portraits, two shots, maybe even small group shots if you've got the room to zoom out with your feet, which you'd want to do anyway. Otherwise, were you to go wide enough, you'd be dealing with unflattering distortion into the corners. And while the maximum magnification of 0.2x is nothing to write home about for wedding ring photography or other detail shots per se, if you're shooting with 50 or 60 megapixels, you'll have no problem filling the frame by cropping in post. I'd guess next on the list would be professional sports photographers close to the action. Think courtside at a basketball game inside Madison Square Garden, courtside at a tennis match at Flushing Meadows in the evening. The 50 to 150 does offer a full stop advantage over the usual suspects 2.8 Holy Trinity zooms, although one might be less pleased with 50mm as the widest field of view possible before having to switch lenses. Of course, with focus breathing controlled so well, image quality is so good that it truly can substitute for a pile of primes. and the relative indifference to size and weight on film sets where tripods, gimbals, jibs, cranes, and the like are de rigueur, but the ability to change fields of view without having to swap out lenses is especially appreciated. Videographers, but most especially filmmakers, I think, are likely to find this lens a fascinating option as well. In short, the 50-150 offers a trade-off I've never seen done quite so convincingly. The ability to raise the shutter speed, lower the ISO, change the field of view, or minimize depth of field with less compromise in image quality, less futzing than with any two zooms or primes. A second trade-off, sacrificing one stop of light compared to even faster 1.4 primes in exchange for freedom from futzing with lens changes. Since Claudia and I rarely choose to do commission work, our last commission was a small, very private wedding for a lovely couple at Trinity Church down in Lower Manhattan last year. We don't shoot sports at all. We're street photographers. And we always prioritize size, weight, speed, and cost over ultimate image quality we can't meaningfully discern or use at 4K resolution for our video work. Hold that thought too. We chose to test the 50-150 for stills only at two bookends, you might say, of the American experience with more than a passing relationship to wedding photography. I'm talking about two extraordinary synagogues. Beth Shalom, just outside of Philadelphia, the only synagogue designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, completed in 1959 and intended to portray a new kind of quintessentially American synagogue. That was the brief. And the National Historic Landmark and New York City designated landmark Eldridge Street Synagogue on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. This one, completed in 1887, the first synagogue in the U.S. built by Eastern European Jewish immigrants. Now, I should warn you that since we went to each synagogue off hours and Claudia doesn't like being photographed, she did our portrait testing using me as the model. Sorry about that. I'll repeat myself using different language. The 50-150 f2 is a brilliant lens, my stint as a model notwithstanding. It is everything you'd expect of a newly introduced G Master in 2025, and yeah, okay, you're seeing how it does for video too, because of course I'm recording this video with it at 50mm wide open f2. Jeez. It is noticeably sharper at f2 than our daily driver here in the Batcave, the very nice Lumix 51.8 at f2.8. But does it matter? For this kind of talking head video, even at 4K distributed through and compressed by YouTube, I'd say no. In this case, that sharpness is a difference without a distinction, which is why I didn't mention YouTubers or social media influencers moments ago when I spoke about the target audience for this lens. Before we'd entered either synagogue, I was already wondering about a number of things, which is why we also brought along our little Sony 16-25 2.8, in anticipation of those instances when zooming with our feet simply wasn't possible. In particular, I was already thinking this. 1. For whom precisely is a 3x 50-150 zoom best suited? I've already answered that kind of question, I think. 2. How much of a detriment or advantage is it to opt for a narrower range 2.5x 28-70 f2 or alternative 3x range 24-70 2.8 instead? 3. Just how important is that one extra stop of light? And 4. Is it better to carry more weight in one's hand with less weight overall, or to carry much less weight in hand at any one time, carrying more weight courtesy of more lenses, faster, fairly heavy primes, in a shoulder bag, backpack, sling, or pouch? If budget is a significant issue, the third way is a set of inexpensive but increasingly surprisingly brilliant third-party f1.8 or f2 primes like the latest $200 Viltrox 50 Air or astonishingly brilliant sub-$1,000 Viltrox 135 1.8 and embrace the futs. Well, probably not much longer at those prices courtesy of the latest tariff kerfuffle. So while I'm not going to take those tariffs into account in this video, by the time you see it, you may want to do that. We all may have to do that. Setting aside those uncertainties, here's what is certain. A. The 50-150 is about 75% larger, almost 50% heavier, somewhere between 21% and 34% more expensive than Sony's announced just 5 months ago, $2,900, 918-gram 28-70 f2 G Master. And it's not as versatile. B. The 50-150 is more than twice the size, just about twice the weight, somewhere between 52% and 70% more expensive than Sony's utterly brilliant but more versatile 24-70mm f2.8 G Master Mark II, which we own, use, and love. C. Right, you've already begun to wonder when I get around to it. The 50-150 is 68% larger, 15% heavier, and more than twice as expensive as its most obvious and direct competitor, Tamron's groundbreaking, I was blown away by it when I reviewed it, 35-150 variable maximum aperture f2-2.8 di3 vx abcd, whatever it is. Once again, less versatile than the Tamron. But even when I reviewed that Tamron back in the day, I thought the Tamron was a beast. While we're at it, I'd also note that the 50-150 is 36% larger, 28% heavier, and between 25 and 39% more expensive than Sony's 70-200 2.8 GM2, which we also own and think is incredible. In other words, this Sony is one big, heavy, expensive, niche-y sucker, which takes away nothing from the engineering achievement it is. In order for the 50-150 to make sense for you, then, A, you really must want that 150 top end, which is to say either you wouldn't countenance cropping from, say, a 70mm frame to reach the equivalent field of view, even with 50 or 60 megapixels on tap, or that you intend to crop from the narrowest field of view of this lens at 150 to, say, the equivalent of a 200 or 300mm field of view, although that doesn't make sense to me. B, you really don't need, or have another way of getting to, a field of view wider than that of a 50mm, either by virtue of a very specific use case or another, wider lens, with or without another body. And C, you really do need that one extra stop of light, which is to say either you wouldn't countenance using noise reduction in post to maintain the same minimum shutter speed required for your intended subject and aesthetic, or you'd already be using noise reduction at the outer limits of what is currently acceptable to you, and one additional stop of noise reduction would push image quality beyond the point of acceptable. Fair enough. Of course, one can see the 50-150 f2 completely differently, as a cost, size, weight, and operational bargain dramatically better than purchasing individual 50, 75, 90, 135, and 150 f2 primes. Fair enough again, although that is a bit silly, don't you think? I mean, couldn't you eliminate one or two of those focal lengths and use sensor resolution to make up those differences? Honestly, couldn't you? Is the 50-150 a bargain instead, say, compared to buying just 3 of those primes, say Sony's 51.4 G Master, 85 1.4 G Master 2, and 135 1.8 G Master? Well, the 50-150 ends up being smaller, lighter, less expensive, and operationally faster. Call it 12% smaller, 16% lighter, somewhere between 33 and 50% or so less expensive, with no lens changes. I wish I'd had the time to compare them directly, but I'd guess at stupid high magnification, the primes would still be sharper, though maybe not the 135, because while it was, in my book, a benchmark lens, I last had one in hand 5 years ago. The industry has changed dramatically since then, and as I said, that Viltrox 135 is astonishing. The 1.4 primes do offer an additional stop of light, 2 stops compared to Holy Trinity 2.8 zooms, for even higher shutter speeds, lower noise, or creamier backgrounds. They are also much lighter in hand, except for the Viltrox. But doesn't that seem a bit of a stretch as well? All of these lenses are so good that you can crop the crap out of any of them. What about just the 35 1.4 GM? We own this one too. And the 85 1.4 GM2 and calling it a day using sensor resolution to fill in the blanks. Or the 85 1.4 GM2 plus the little 16 to 25 2.8 we own and think is fabulous at the size, weight, and price. If we're thinking about tariffs, what about buying used? If you can find what you're looking for, never mind at a price significantly less than new these days. Finally, again, right, you're wondering why I didn't get to this first. The Tamron is marginally more versatile and clearly a better value than the Sony, but the Sony is even sharper viewed at high magnification, especially wide open in the corners. It will shoot as fast as whatever Sony body to which you attach it will go, and both are simply too big and heavy for what and how we shoot. I do have a couple of nits to pick with this lens, along with a single light slap on the wrist. First, the white barrel. The right call used as a sports lens outdoors? Absolutely. Otherwise, not so good for remaining inconspicuous, although for use at weddings, who cares? Second, it's not just that the 95mm filter thread is big, but that the exterior diameter of the filter must come in at or less than 99.4mm or it won't fit properly. Yeah, like I said, nits. But here's the light slap on the wrist, a use case which I mentioned earlier. A. While the 50-150's 0.2x maximum magnification is better actually than both of Sony's 50mm primes, their $250 186 gram plain Jane G at 1.8, 0.14x, and their outstanding $1,300 516 gram 51.4 G Master at 0.16x, we own that one. None of these are close to true macro range, which is generally considered to start at 0.5x mag and run to 1x and beyond. B. By comparison, at least 3 of Sony's other zooms, their $2,300 695 gram 24-70 2.8 GM Mark II, $2,800 1.04 kilo 70-200mm f2.8 GM2, even the relatively tiny $1,600 795 gram 70-200 f4 GOSS Mark II actually offer higher maximum magnifications of 0.26, 0.32, and 0.5 respectively. That 70-200 for Mark II sleeper. C. Thus, if frame-filling wedding ring or engagement ring photography is part of what you do for your professional work, the 50-150 f2 itself is not novel for its maximum magnification. I wouldn't particularly highlight its close focusing or maximum magnification as a basis for significant differentiation versus what else is out there. And alternative zooms, as I just said, for wedding work are not only better for this particular scenario, but are more versatile, smaller, lighter, less expensive. You get it. I've said it I don't know how many times now. But with all of this said, hence the light slap on the wrist, D. Again, so what? With 50 or 60 megapixels on tap in the latest software, you can get great close-ups with it anyway. Although, E. There's this. Either the super shallow depth of field at f2 will be perceived by your clients as making that shot, or they'll wonder why you couldn't get it sharp front to back. Of course, you most certainly could get it sharp by stopping down, or most especially by focus bracketing, in my book, But my own view is that even at f4, the depth of field is already so shallow, that close, that I can't imagine any client getting upset that it wasn't shallower. Then again, they might not care in either case. Lower noise because of the lower ISO possible wide open? Sure. Although, as I suggested moments ago, with the latest denoising algorithms, and considering the likely final image sizes and viewing distances, I'm not sure how much that matters either. I guess this really does make the whole 0.2x magnification just another nit after all. I'll wrap it up. I'll summarize it this way. Whether or not the 50-150 f2 G Master is the right lens for you won't come down to questions of image quality, build quality, or functionality. Like all brands, or in this case sub-brands, G Master is a promise. And the G Master promise is A, that these are the very best lenses Sony can bring to market across a broad spectrum of use cases. B, this makes them as good or just fractionally below the very best in the business at any price. Although, as I said earlier, this particular lens has no direct competition. When it comes to G Master lenses, it's now pretty much only about size, weight, and or price. Sony usually wins on size and weight. Always wins on maximum burst rate. And it is right up there, as I just said, with the very best in the business. Minor chromatic aberration at or near minimum focusing distances, at or near maximum aperture, and more distortion when left uncorrected than what one weaned on physics-only lens design might wish, notwithstanding. Price? It's an expensive lens. If the focal range and constant f2 maximum aperture truly makes sense for you, if you have the budget and inclination, and if neither the size nor the weight bother you, this is, irrespective of mount, the best lens in the industry for what it does. But once more with feeling, as we close out now, there are other lenses, or combinations of lenses, smaller, lighter, less expensive, that will, I suspect, make more sense for most of us. But what do you think?
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From custom domains to beautiful websites using their easily customizable templates that you can have up and running in minutes, e-commerce, email and email marketing, SEO, analytics, and scheduling, Squarespace does it all and has done it for us for the last 10 years. If you are a small to mid-sized business in any industry, Squarespace is the place to go for all of your website needs. Hop over to www.squarespace.com/Hugh for a free trial. And if you like what you see and want to move forward, receive 10% off your first order by using the discount code Hugh at checkout. Thanks, Squarespace. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comments section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video call via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.